All right, guys, welcome to episode number 62 of the Conquer Me podcast. I've got a special guest in the house today, Coleman. He is our director of training at Strong Body Fitness, and we're going to discuss the ins and outs of coaching and, why he became a coach and what it looks like and feels like to be a trainer, both inside and outside of Strong Body Fitness. RJ, appreciate you coming on today, man.
Yeah, Jay, thanks for having me. Watched pretty much all of your podcasts and happy to finally be part of it.
Awesome, dude. Cool. Well, hey, let's start out with just telling the listeners a little bit about who you are, what your background is, what experience you have in fitness. Just roll for a few minutes on some context of who we're talking to or who they're listening to.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So I have a pretty varied background in terms of careers and things that I've worked on. But as far as fitness, it started at a pretty early age. I started doing sports when I was 4, karate and t-ball, and did that pretty, consistently throughout high school, and then played football in college for 4 years. And then after that, kind of kept up with working out, exercising. Always had, I guess, a natural inclination or enjoyment, maybe even a little bit of an aptitude towards that. I got an undergraduate degree in economics. Really wasn't happy doing that, sitting behind the desk, and decided to do
doing that?
I'm sorry.
Is anyone happy doing that? I'm sure there's
I don't know.
out there.
I'm sure somebody, but yeah, I wasn't. But I, I kind of was looking for something a little bit more active, a little bit more physical, a little bit more my speed. And, I started working at a gym called 24 Hour Fitness in California.
Big
And,
gym.
I went in and was like, hey, I think I'd like to be a trainer. I've worked out a lot, I've gained weight, gained muscle for sports. I've toned up. I've kind of done a number of different things. I felt like I had a pretty good understanding, hoping that I would get trained. And they were like, yeah, no, you don't have a certification. Sorry. And I was like, okay. So I started as a membership counselor for a couple months, basically doing sales. Hated it. It just was very not fulfilling. And out in California, there's a gym on every corner. So it was, people were like, oh, I'm just going to go there. And, it was kind of a pain. But luckily, I got to our regional manager. She was a former Olympic swimmer, had a couple babies, was in her 30s, was looking to try to get back in shape herself. And the one day she was in and she's like, RJ, man, I always see you working out. Like your workouts, like, like really good. And like, you know what you're doing. And they seem pretty intense. Like, can I maybe work out with you? And I was like, sure. So for, I think 2 or 3 days, I kind of put her through some workouts and was kind of training her, I guess, like unofficially. And she was like, why are you not a trainer? And I was like, well, the manager wouldn't let me. And she's like, all right, I got you. And she came back like 10 minutes later. She's like, next week, Thursday, you show up for our certification course, like be there.
No way.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool and exciting. And yeah, as soon as I did it, I loved it. So I worked there for a number of years, trained over 4,000, hours, 4,000 sessions. Had a really good time, a lot of great experience, and a lot of really good, learnings from that. And then I went back to graduate school, got a master's degree in epidemiology. And again, I really like the content field, but I was kind of stuck behind a desk all day.
Yeah.
And ultimately, led myself back to training, and which brings me here. I got an Indeed notification from a recruiter, like, hey, there's this job, we think it might be good for you, yada yada. So I looked at it and I remember being like, it said Batesburg, Leesville, South Carolina, and I just was like, I don't, like, where is that?
Yeah.
And I live in Chapin, so when I looked, I'm like, man, that's kind of far. And I was like, well, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go take a look. And I told my wife, or I've told some people here, like the second I came in, I was like, man, this place seems pretty cool. And when I went home, I told my wife, like, if he offers a job, I think I'm gonna take it. It seems like a pretty cool place. And obviously, a year and 2 or 3 months later, I'm super happy that it happened.
That's awesome, man. Well, it's been awesome to have you. You're such a key piece to what we're doing. And I've learned a ton from you in a short amount of time. I know the team has learned a ton from you in a short amount of time. In fact, that's a big piece of your role, is mentoring other coaches that come through our doors, because the reality is they do come through our doors. And unfortunately, like in the fitness, field, it's such a career that requires you to be passionate about the things that you're doing, right? Like it's kind of like a teacher. Like once you get that fitness itch though, it's very hard to get away from fitness, but people do come and go. You know, they come in, they think like, "Oh, this training job's going to be amazing and I'm going to just work out all day and hang out with Instagram models and whatever in their head that they see on wherever." You know, and it's different. You're coming in and you're working with real people with real challenges who have real goals and obstacles that they need to overcome. So you have proven to me and to everybody else in the studio that like you're that guy. I mean, you have those those qualities of a good trainer, someone who's very compassionate and passionate about the field and wants to see people move forward, and you care about the details. And so talk to me from just the perspective of a trainer, coach, like what is it about that role that gets you excited? Like why did you choose to become a trainer?
Sure. Well, thank you for the very kind words. I appreciate that. You know, I think for me, I just, when you want to talk about exercise, sports, athletics, things like that, that has always kind of been something I've drawn to in general.
Mm,
You know, some people are very musically inclined or talented or academically, artistic, you know, whatever it might be. I definitely have always just enjoyed that. And I think growing up, you know, my dad was a pretty big instrumental coach for me growing up. He coached a lot of my sports. We worked out in the yard and practiced and stuff together, along with going to a number of camps and other great coaches that I had. Excuse me, sorry. I um I just really liked the process. Like I was one of the people who I loved practice, like
mm,
and the game, and I always enjoyed like learning something and then being like, oh, like you do this and then like I
mm,
love that process and then putting it all together. And I like to call them like light bulb moments where all of a sudden it just clicks.
yep.
So I've always kind of just enjoyed that for myself. And then I found that when I show it to other people, it's like exciting. It's almost like, hey, let me help you get there
Mm,
in a faster and easier way than I did. You know, let me show you. I have this secret that I've gone through and experienced, and let me help you do that so you don't have to necessarily have the same, you know, the length of journey or maybe difficulty as I did.
yeah.
You know, and I had people in my life that would, you know, do stuff for like that for me. And I don't know, for me, I just love that moment where you're just like, oh, okay, I get it.
Right.
Because, you know, like they say, knowledge is power. And I think once people kind of get that, and then they're excited and then they start seeing results or they get happy, then it makes me feel good. So I think that's one of the things that I like. And lastly, just to touch on your thing is, you know, with this industry is, yeah, a lot of people think like, oh, I'm really fit and I like to go to the gym. I'm going to be a trainer. And it's almost like it's kind of the opposite. Like you have to be 100% about everybody else.
Yeah.
Like you can't be like, oh, I love going and doing bicep curls. You know, I have a six pack ab, so yeah, I'm going to be a trainer. No, because a lot of times what got you there is not doesn't apply to any of the people you're going to train.
Mm,
So
yeah.
if you don't understand that, if you're just young, you have good genetics, you've been playing sports your whole life, and you're in really good shape. Well, yeah, it's. I'm not going to say it's that they don't put effort in,
Right.
but it's not challenging, and they don't understand what somebody who's 58, a mother who's 58, has 3 kids, has had 4 different surgeries, works 50 hours a week, and is just like hasn't been in the gym in 25 years. It's totally different. Like you know, that's speaking like you know 2 different languages.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's one thing that um, I don't know for me. I guess it just I get it. I don't know why, but just like, hey, like you have to put yourself in their shoes and then
Yeah.
try to help them, you know, progress from there.
So in my experience, I've worked with a lot of trainers, and that's the biggest hangup, right? Is they do what they think that they need themselves. They do with their client what they think they need themselves. You know,
Yeah.
if they are interested in or want to be a bodybuilder, well, then all of their clients are going to be bodybuilders. If they're interested in or whatever with CrossFit or Pilates or whatever modality of training that they think that is right for them, then they try to project that over on their other clients. And
Yeah.
frankly, like I think that's a big reason why the frustration comes. Is they're like, why can't I get this person results? Like it worked for me. Why is it not working for them? Now, we're talking about entry level trainers, right? Like people who have been in for a while, they have a different level of awareness. They figured out, like, okay, there's a lot of different modalities of fitness. There's a lot of different ways to move your body. There's a lot of different ways to exercise and to get people to their goal. Like, regardless of what that goal is, in this day and age, most people want to lose weight because we live in a very, obese society, and it's a major problem. So the majority of the people walking in these days in any fitness studio are going to be weight loss clients. Hey, I want to lose weight because I don't feel good anymore. It's putting my health at risk. I'm vulnerable to other illnesses and diseases that I have a medical or family history of. I don't feel good in my skin. I'm uncomfortable. I'm not confident. Those types of things, right? So I want to lose weight. And
Sure.
so that's the majority of them. However, how you get that person to that end result can look very different, right? There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of do that. So talk to me about that, because I think a lot of people listening to this, they just think a personal trainer is a personal trainer. And they think like, well, there's just one way to be a personal trainer, or one way to work out, or what. Like, you obviously have to understand all these different ways of moving your body, and you also have to understand what's good for a certain demographic and what's maybe not good for another, because any movement is good movement, right? Like CrossFit is good movement if you're the right fit for that.
Sure.
Pilates is good movement if you're the right fit for that. Water aerobics is good movement if you're the right fit for that. So talk to me about some different modalities that you've been a part of and how you can kind of sort through what makes the most sense for certain categories of people.
Sure. So, I've been lucky enough to work with people of all different ages and levels, from high school, college athlete type people to the oldest. I think I had a client that was in her 80s,
Mm,
and yeah, so there's like you said, there's CrossFit type workouts. There's boot camp style workouts, right, which are a little bit different, right? So I think a lot of people get confused in that. So CrossFit is a lot more about Olympic lifts, right? And kind of specific circuits, whereas like a boot camp is more about maybe a certain period of time, or aerobic type movement, or plyometrics.
mm,
um, Obviously there's powerlifting, right? So people that are just working on, they want to move the maximum amount of load that they can, right? um, a lot of, especially in California, I was around a lot of people that were into bodybuilding, right? What we call hypertrophy phase,
yep,
trying to grow their muscles, body composition change. And then there's also people who just, are looking to move better, right? They want to be more functional throughout their day. So balance training, reactive training, core training, stabilization. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that I think you can do it. My opinion, I think, is for the average person who's looking to lose some weight. As you said, most people are coming in, they want to lose some weight, they want to have some body composition change, and they want to just move and feel better.
and not
And
get
so
hurt.
I think the thing is that really a good program is going to kind of have almost a little bit of everything in it,
Mm,
right? But it's going to be structured in a way that's going to get them to what they need, right? So that doesn't mean that it can't have a movement or some movements that are in CrossFit, or that are in a boot camp style, or that there isn't some sort of heavy lifting, or that there isn't a hypertrophy phase, right? I think it needs to be well rounded, but it needs to focus on them and where they're at.
mm,
And I think that's what we're trying to do here, with our programming, is to make sure that it's focused on that. So if somebody came in and they were a marathon runner, right, that doesn't mean that I'm never going to have them lift heavy weights,
right.
but I'm not going to do it a lot.
Yep.
And just like if I have somebody who comes in that wants to be a power lifter, I'm certainly going to have them do cardio,
Mm,
right? They need to, but I'm not going to have them do the cardio that the marathon runner is going to do, right? It's going to look different. It's going to be tailored to them, their needs and what they want. So, kind of like you said, it's just like, oh, well, this is what I do, so this is what you got to do, and it's not like you need to think about the philosophy I try to take is, and I try to share this with clients whenever I can, is your goal is my goal.
yeah.
I tell them, I go, I don't have goals as a trainer when I'm working. I mean, yeah, I want to, like, in terms of, like, I want to be a good trainer. I want to deliver good service. I want to help people. I want to be passionate, excited. But as far as like what what their specific workout or program or game plan looks like, I have zero. I don't know. Like, you tell me what
Yeah.
it is, and then that becomes my goal. And then, okay, let's let's map out a plan that will help you get there. So I don't know if that answered your questions, but
Yeah, I think that's
hopefully it
awesome,
did.
man. Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a lot of different things at Strong Body, as you know. You haven't seen it all, but you've heard stories. And
Mhm.
so for me, like starting out as a very entry level coach that just had his own transformation, I was in a really bad spot in my life and like had gained some weight and I had a history of working out, but I'd gotten out of it for a while and I really wanted to kind of change, change my fitness and improve my fitness and get some of this weight off and like get in a better place. And I started doing kettlebell training like 10 years ago. Right. And I got into the whole kettlebell thing. And like I was outside in the yard swinging kettlebells and learning all these kettlebell stuff because in my mind, they made me sweat a lot. And it was a direct stimulus of like when I go out there and swing those kettlebells, I feel like I'm getting my ass kicked. Right. So I must be getting into shape. And fortunately for me at that time in my life, it was great for me, right? Like I was able to mix in a good amount of cardio and resistance, and it really got me interested in the whole boot camp thing, right? This is like CrossFit's really at its peak or really ramping up to become that. These boot
Yep.
camp gyms start popping up everywhere. So when I started Strong Body, in my mind, I was like, man, this has worked for me and it's working for other people. This is the model that I want to run. And so I opened a gym and it was very CrossFit boot camp esque, kind of a combination of the two, really. Like
Sure.
you really looked like both, depending on what
Mhm.
day you would come in. But what I found is like the majority of my clients coming in were in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And so we're doing these workouts that I feel good about. And I'm showing up like, man, I can't wait to crush this workout tonight. We've got box jumps and, sprints down the turf, pushing a sled. And we've got like all these things that, kettlebell swings, ballistic explosive movements that are super exciting for me. But then I'm looking around, I'm like, man, like these people, there's a big portion of these people that are struggling to do this. And of course, just my lack of, back then awareness, I'm starting to see our injury rate rise. Although people love it, they love the sweaty, like, yeah, I just feel like I got, killed basically,
Mhm.
nearly. We started seeing some downsides to that, right? So it's like, all right, well, maybe we need to consider switching gears a little bit. And we moved into a semi-private training model where we could give these people a higher level of attention because the problem was we were doing movements that were already high risk. Then we were doing them inside of a facility with 20 or 30 people and one coach. And most of the time, the coach wasn't nearly as knowledgeable as you because we live in a town of 5,000 people where there's just not people lining up with the skill set to be a great fitness coach, right? And
Sure.
so I'm just being transparent with you guys if you're listening. Like we've done a lot and we've made a lot of mistakes. And I can own that, but then also it just makes me more passionate about the direction that we're headed now and why I feel so strongly about the program that we're offering now. I would put against any other program for the people in that demographic. Now also, we've got some younger folks, but now we're in a position with the program that we have that we can also scale that to be satisfactory for them too. In the past, what we were doing was really for the more fit, more capable, less injuries, younger, more flexible, more resilient type of client, right? And that there was a constant churn of people coming and going. They loved the stimulus of sweating, but then their body was getting beat down. And then eventually they became, these people that want to work out 8 days a week and like they can't get enough of that feeling because it's hard, but anything that you do that's hard, you walk away feeling amazing, right? It's like, man, the payoff to that was great. Like I really feel like I'm sweating. I must have done something. And we got great results out of that gym, but it began to diminish, quickly towards the end where I'm like, okay, we got to do something different. We really need to shift gears and start focusing on, especially at this age, muscle development, muscle maintenance. And then of course, bringing down body fat is a huge piece of that, but doing it in a way that's not sacrificing our metabolism, that's not tearing down all of our lean muscle. So we started playing around with different models and landed on semi-private. So out of what you've done, you've ran boot camps, you've done one-on-one, you've seen semi-private training. What do you think the pros and cons are to those different modalities, and what do you think about semi-private training?
Sure. So one thing that popped in my head as you were just talking, about the sweat is one manager that I had. when I was out in California training, um, he had a great line, and he's like, my mom knows nothing about the gym, about training, anything at all. He goes, but what she knows, she likes when she sweats at the gym. And he's like, well, I can just turn the heat up and she'll sweat a little bit. And she thinks
Hmm.
she got a great workout, but that doesn't mean she got a great workout. Right.
Right.
He's like, I can just turn the heat up and have her walk for a few minutes. So it's one of those things where, like, yeah, sweating is good. And like you said, and certainly workouts like that are, I like to think, part of the spectrum of working
Hmm.
out, and something that can and should be included in programming.
Yep.
Um, and I think, like you said, they're very popular. They're very excitable. They're easy to program,
Yep.
and they're easy to run as a coach. Um, but they typically, again, if you have a very young crowd that's very fit, very capable, you took a collegiate women's soccer team, a men's ice hockey team, people who are young and fit, yeah, they're going to be able to do those probably all day in and out, and they're going to love it, and it's going to be great. Well, they were already top-notch athletes, right? They
Right.
were already probably doing something similar to that. But yeah, you take somebody, who's 48 years old, hasn't worked out in 20 years, has not a great knee, the back sore, shoulders hurting. Very, very quickly, they're probably going to end up on the injured reserve list, and going to see physical therapy, or going to see a doctor, or not able to continue. Um, Also, I think another thing you get is that people tend to see, when they're doing those types of programs, quick results,
Mm.
short-term quick results. So I can't deny that. However, usually, as you said, there's a big turnover. The reason is they're not able to sustain that. And there's a couple of things beyond that. One, a lot of times when people try something new, hopefully, and usually, they're probably making a lot of life changes
Mm.
along with it, but they're only thinking about the exercise program, right? But they've probably made some changes to, like, if they're drinking a lot or eating poor, they're probably making some changes with that. And they are increasing their metabolism, and burning through a lot more calories. So you're going to get some weight loss. But if your body can't recover, and can't take it, well, eventually you're just going to stop, because you're going to be beat down. And then if you lose motivation and a positive, mindset, you're just going to go right back and
Mm.
gain it. And I know, as you and I have talked about, every time you gain it back, it gets a little bit harder to lose it.
Yep.
Um, you know, but the other thing with it is that, um, your body also adapts to what you put it through.
Mm.
So we're doing, starting this coming week, our gym vocabulary is going to be putting out on the board.
Nice.
We're going to put it on social media. Andrea and myself have been working on that, and something called the SAID principle, or the principle of specificity. And basically, whatever you put your body through, it's going to adapt to, and that's good and bad. So when you start doing a boot camp style, CrossFit style workout, you will see changes initially, because it's going to be something drastically different than what you've done.
Mm. Yep.
So your body's going to be all out of whack and working super hard, and like, oh my gosh, then you'll start to see results. But if you just continually do that same workout in that same way without change, eventually your body gets used to it.
Mm.
And so as you drop that, whatever, 5, 10, 20, whatever pounds, your body kind of finds a new set point.
Yep.
And now that becomes where your body is comfortable. And so if it's just the same thing over and over, the big term you always hear people talk about is plateau.
Yep.
Oh, I plateaued and I just lost motivation. Well, you plateaued because your body got really efficient at what you were doing. So you need to, in some way, change it. Um,
So let me
but
real quick, RJ, let
yeah,
me speak to that, because I think that's a
sure.
great point. So someone might argue, yeah, but when I do a cardio workout, there's a lot of variety. I like the variety. So how, if there's so much variety, does my body stop changing? And what actually happens, that people don't understand, is like your body becomes efficient at the calorie burning process, right? So
Yes.
explain that. So although there's variety, what happens with the efficiency of your body, and why do you
Sure.
get
So again, like, so your body learns, how to do that movement, right? And it's part of survival mechanism, right? It's part of our bodies adapting to environments and being able to survive. And it's been going on, since the beginning of time for humans. So, what happens is you're as you do a movement and you become more proficient at it, as you become better at it, your body uses less energy to do it.
Yep.
So if you started running day one, you went out and you ran 3 miles, and I'm just totally making up these numbers. There's no,
Yeah.
I don't have any exact numbers, but say you go out and you run 3 miles and you burn 500 calories the first day, right? And you're sweating and you're exhausted and you're like, oh my gosh, that was great. Well, let's just say hypothetically you keep running 3 miles and you lose some weight. 6 months down the road, you go out and run 3 miles, you might only burn 250 calories.
Mhm.
So now you've literally lost 50% of that caloric output. Well, that means that you'd have to run twice as long. So you can't run 3 miles anymore. You got to run 6 miles,
Yep.
right? And that's going to keep kind of happening. Also, if you think you're burning more calories because, well, I always run 3 miles, you might be more inclined to eat more. And then again, that calorie deficit that you were in is gone, right? Now you're back into a calorie surplus, and oh my gosh, I'm running 3 miles, 4 times a week, but I just gained 10 pounds. Like, what the heck happened?
Not to mention how hungry you get when you do all that cardio, right?
Correct. Yes. I knew some people who did marathons and triathlons, and now they were very fit and they were still young and doing it, but I mean, they would be eating like 8,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
Like they would down um, Sundays and milkshakes like they were nothing. However, they were training for 8 hours a day,
Right.
and they were also in their early to mid 20s, which is not our population, right?
Right.
Not our client, not who we're working with. So that's not something that's going to be feasible or, as you've already mentioned, sustainable,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's a big thing we're trying to train our clients here is we want to teach you how to be able to be fit, healthy, achieve your goals, but to do it for the next whatever 10, 20, 30, 40
Yeah.
years, not just for 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all about getting after it, man. Like if I work out, I like to work out. I
You
like
work
to
out very
I like to
hard. I've seen you.
feel
Yes,
it.
absolutely.
Yeah, I like to get after it. But I've also learned that like high intensity doesn't necessarily mean good all the time,
Mhm.
right? Like again, there's a place for it a couple times a week. I like to have those kind of workouts, but for the majority of our folks, like they in the old model, they would do these workouts and then it would go from 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, and they're getting results, right? Like they're seeing their body change. But what happens is like they're not recovering. They're starting to experience injury. They because of the high intensity and so much stress on the body, their cortisol levels are staying high, which
Yeah.
now you have high cortisol because it's a stress hormone because it's stressful. I mean, you go through a hell of a boot camp workout and it's stressful. You like, man, walk out of there kind of limping away. So it puts your body under tremendous amount of stress, which then you're going to eat more because of that as a response. And so like
Yep.
there's all these things that happen that although the like, man, this feels good to be hot and sweaty is awesome. There's just a better way to do it. And science has shown that and changing to the semi-private model has shown that. So talk to us a little bit about the difference with semi-private and how we run that and what benefits you think you see out of that.
Sure. So semi-private model that we have running, I think is pretty good. We've definitely put some thought and effort into it. And again, I think it kind of is a pretty well-rounded, encompassing program that can really fit the we'll call it our average gym training client.
Yep.
So the nice thing about it, I think, just from an outside perspective of somebody that's kind of trained in different areas, is it has a one-on-one feel to it,
Mm,
but it also has that group or that I'm going to use your bad word, but that class setting to it. Right
yep.
now, again, we run sessions, not classes, but
That's right.
it kind of combines the best of both worlds, which I like. As a coach or a trainer, it's actually the hardest thing to do.
For sure.
It's very challenging, but I also enjoy that part of it. Not that classes or large groups don't have their things that are challenging, or
Yep.
that one-on-one doesn't have it. But when you combine those two together, I think it's pretty powerful. Again, challenging, but I think more rewarding. Right? I think when you're doing that, when you're doing it well and you feel like everything's clicking, it's much more rewarding than just working with one person, or just kind of having, because even if you have a class of 30 people, it's hard to get to know them, right? It's
Right.
hard to actually know if you're having an impact on that person. It's hard to have those little conversations that I get to have with our clients, not just about the gym, but about their families and about what
Yeah.
they're interested in and what they're doing and how their job is. And if you got a group of 30 people, you're maybe going to talk to two or three people, and it's really hard to make that connection, and it's harder to help inspire somebody to achieve their goals. It's hard to bring up their goals. It's hard to maybe hold them accountable. It's hard to maybe give them that little extra push or even that motivation that
Yep.
so I really like that. And then what we've done with our programming is basically, we have kind of two different cycles or patterns that we're putting people through right now. We have your traditional strength training, resistance training, models with, pushing, pulling, hip hinge, knee hinge, some core work. Then everybody also gets a day of like single leg, single arm, stability, core, balance. I like to refer to also as symmetry, right? We all have like that one arm or leg that are dominant, and the other one's, kind of weak on that. So by doing those single leg days, we can really kind of find and try to balance that out. And then we also have our metabolic days, right? Which is referring to kind of what you talked about, more of a kind of a boot campish style type thing. Because as we talked about, and you mentioned, there is a place for that in workout programming and training. But we're doing it for our clients either once every 4 or once every 5 workouts, to make sure that we're getting it. There's some consistency with that, but we're not relying on that as our way to get results, because again, that's just short-term, short-sighted results versus doing true strength training and resistance training, where we're developing and building skeletal muscle, core strength, stability, and really focusing on, again, our movement patterns, or if you want to think of it as technique, to be involved. And then I don't know if you want me to get into like progressions or
Yeah, go for it, man. I mean, what makes our
periodization. So
what makes our program good, and what are the pros? Anything you want to share?
sure. So we focus on something called progressive overload, and kind of trying to keep it simple. Basically, we want to continually progress, the strength, the lean muscle, the skeletal muscle, the ability, the endurance, the core stability, all those, catchy buzzwords. We're trying to just slowly, progressively, just slightly overload what our body is used to so that it keeps progressing. We're not just going to keep running 3 miles every day, right? We're going to just give it that little bit extra progression. And we utilize something called the linear periodization model, which basically means that we move through a phase for a specific period of time. We put our body through that. We start to develop and adapt to it. And then we change the format of the way that we're delivering that model. So again, we start with, right now we're in our endurance phase. We're going to do that for 4 weeks. We're doing higher repetitions. We're doing lower weights. And as I keep stressing everybody, that doesn't mean that it's easy, because it's higher reps and lower weights, right? And people are figuring out. I warned everyone last week, like when we were doing our last week of strength, like the 20 reps are coming, and you're it's kind of like, I felt like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, right? Like 20 reps is coming.
That's right.
So it's just a different way to work the muscle, right? We're really trying to build the endurance in the muscles, so that they're able to function for a longer period of time. Whether it be you're out in your garden working, right, or you're lifting weights, whatever it might be, that you have that endurance of the muscle. We then change into what's called the hypertrophy phase, where we're working on developing, growing, our muscle tissue, actually making it become more developed. And then we go into our strength phase, which is where we're pushing heavier loads, trying to kind of increase our overall strength. And with that, one thing that I thought was important from kind of some things that had happened in the past is we're kind of capping the repetitions at about 4 as the lowest. Again, if somebody came in and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to train here and I'm going to be a power lifter," well, we might slightly adapt or modify things for them.
Yep.
But for our average client, we don't need to be going less than 4 reps. There's just no need for a 55-year-old grandma to do that. But it is important though to work on and improving our overall strength.
Yep.
And I think that's, really important for any age you do to have all of those different levels of strength. So our programming, while we do the same general movements over and over, I like to remind people that there's really only a couple of basic movements in the gym, right? There's probably about 10.
Yep.
There's not that many different ways you can actually move. We have variety, so we got to repeat them over and over. We'll talk about that in a second, I think.
Awesome. Yep.
But we need to kind of repeat those, right, to get good. But it is important, and it does make it, maybe a little more enjoyable or exciting to have some variety. And we have that by having, 1 or 2 days where we're doing the traditional 2 arms, 2 legs. Then we have the days where we're doing the single arm, single leg, right? So we're getting some variety there. We have 7 different levels of every movement that we go through,
Mm.
right? So there's several different options that, depending on a client and their level or ability, we can put them through. Every fourth or fifth workout, they're doing a metabolic workout, right? Which is different. And then every 4 weeks, we're changing them to a different phase.
Mm.
So there's actually, if you think about it, quite a lot of different variety,
Yeah.
um, but still keeping it where we're able to progress because we're repeating those general movements over and over. So if you give somebody the fun, exciting, different workout every time, it might seem like, oh, this is great, this is amazing programming. No, it's
Right.
actually lazy,
Right.
right? You're just you're just
That's
throwing,
what we used to do. Yeah. I
yeah,
used
you're
to do
just,
that. Right.
and I've done that in the past too. Yeah, I mean, you think, but then when you really sit back, you're like, oh, I'm just picking out different stuff every time.
Yeah, it's just random. It's a
Yeah,
hodgepodge bag of stuff that makes people work their cardiovascular system and they
yeah,
feel good about it.
yeah,
But the reality is it's like what you're saying, man, is really putting it even in perspective for me. And I understand all this stuff, but to think about the variety that is in the program, but then also the focus. And so when you look at these two different ways of working out, one is what we're doing is more resistance training focus with some cardio mixed in, a good healthy dose, but we're working through phases, we're working through different you know different weights and different rep ranges and all these things that like are keeping us from adapting to those movements, right?
yeah,
And we're also prioritizing lean muscle mass, and this is scary. So if women are listening to this, they're about to like hit the no, I don't want to hear muscle mass, no, I'm going to get bulky, right? Just hear me
yeah,
out. What I mean is there's muscle is the most precious asset that you can have on your body, right? It is everything in terms of increasing your metabolism, longevity, making sure that your integrity of your structure is sound and you don't fall and break a hip, like all these things. But then also the number one thing people say when they come in, women especially, hey, I want to lose weight and tone up. Okay, if you want to tone up, you can't tone up without muscle. Muscle is the tone. Okay,
yeah,
so when you're using that language, what you're saying is, I want a lean physique where you can see some curvature inside of my skin on, that is giving me a nice toned fit look. Well, that only comes with muscle. And I'm
yep,
telling you guys, it's like the laws of the universe. If something is very precious and it's a huge asset, it's also hard to come by. And so for women and people to think that they're going to come into the gym and just add all this lean muscle that's going to help them look toned by doing a bunch of cardio or without prioritizing muscle development, it's just not going to happen. So while on one side you've got the cardio stimulus of like, man, this feels good to sweat, what you're really doing is improving your cardiovascular health. That's what you're doing. You're not working towards your goal of being toned and having a physique that, your clothes fit really good and you like getting rid of the bat wings and you're putting some muscle in there. Like that's not happening when you're doing a bunch of boot camp, high intensity training. But what you are doing is you're getting blood into your heart, which is great for your cardiovascular system. Now, when you come in and you do resistance training and you do a combination of all the things that you just talked about, linear periodization, going through different sets and reps, changing the load constantly, moving through progressions of each movement pattern, doing all the movement patterns. I mean, I've gone to gyms, dude, forever and for months. We did the same 2 or 3 movement patterns. Like, when are
yeah,
we going to do some pulls? All we ever do is push. So, like, we have a systematic approach to making sure that all of the movement patterns that your body can do are done on a regular basis in different ways with different loads for different periods of time. It's about the most variety that you could get in terms of making sure the adaptability doesn't stick and that we're constantly moving through that adaptive phase. So Yeah, man, like great explanation of that. I will say this, some of the things that I've heard, frankly, from moving from a model where I used to take pride in the fact that we never did the same workout twice. I'd be like, we never did this. We you'll never see the same movement. Like I'm creating all these crazy ass movements that make no sense. Like maybe we'll take a kettlebell and swing it behind our back and cut a backflip just because it's different. It's like it doesn't have. There's no exercise science validation behind it. It's just I know that there's variety and there's entertainment value.
Yeah,
And so people started coming to us to be entertained. And
sure.
they're like, I just want to come here because it's fun. And it's always different. Well, so then we moved to semi-private, and I'm like, no, 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 we're going to start taking a more scientific approach to this. Like, guys, I know this is fun to sweat a lot and high five and run up and down the turf and all that. And that's awesome. And I love that too. And I still miss that. But also, I know that you guys want to get results. I know that you don't want to get injured. I know how precious that it is that you maintain your lean muscle. I know that you want your metabolism to be higher so that you can burn fat at rest much easier. You do a bunch of cardio, you're getting rid of muscle, you're killing your metabolism. So like we're going to do this the right way. We're going to switch gears and we're going to focus primarily on resistance training, about 70%. We're going to inject 30% in there of cardiovascular training so we keep the heart healthy, and we're going to get you great results. And like to me, I'm like I'm doing the best thing that I could ever do. And for the majority of our clients it has been. But there are a few that are still, they went from such a variety environment to now they feel like there's redundancy. And frankly, compared to that, it is,
Sure.
right? But it's not a negative thing. So when you see redundancy in workouts, or when I hear that feedback, to me, I know that they're just not, and that's on us, but they're not educated on why we should have redundancy. Not only why we do, but why we should, why any well rounded, scientifically backed program is going to be redundant. So, what's the purpose of that? What does that mean to you when someone says, man, the programming's redundant? And do you think that's necessary? Just speak to that.
Sure. So I think a lot of it, too, just first off, is how you frame it, right? Now, yes, if you came in and every day for the next 6 months, you literally did the same 8 exercises.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
redundant.
obviously that's not good, right? So, and a lot of times I think for clients, it depends. And I think there's a lot of that, well, last workout, or, if we look, it's like, well, no, the last time you did that movement was actually 9 days ago. And you've
Yeah.
had 2 workouts since then here, not counting if they've done 20, utilize the 24/7,
Yeah.
or if they're doing something on their own. But kind of a couple analogies I've tried to come up with to explain this to people is I'll go with like an academic type one first, and then I'll go with a sports analogy. So, something that I've been trying to say to clients is like, hey, like when you were learning how to first, kindergarten, first grade, whatever grade it was, when you're learning how to read and write, I'm like, you learn the letters of the alphabet first, right? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And how many are there? 26. Okay. Well, after a couple of weeks, was your kindergarten teacher like, well, I know you learn these 26, but I want to keep some variety. So I'm just going to throw out some fake letters at you. No, right? Like you're not just throwing out symbols, right? Or trying to teach you a new language. You kept practicing those 26 letters over and over, right?
Yep.
Looking at them visually, like seeing them, knowing how to say them and sound them out, knowing how to write them, practicing over and over. And then eventually that turned into words, right? And then that turned into phrases, and then sentences, and then paragraphs. And to this day, right, we're sitting here having this great dialogue and conversation. We're using those same 26 letters
Yep.
that we used a long time ago, right? Nobody's ever gone up to you, Jay, and been like, dude, you got to learn some new letters, to talk to me. So that's one that I don't know. I think it's probably a little funny, but
Yeah, I love
sometimes
that.
I try to make up a little bit silly analogies so that the point sticks. The other one is a sport one. So I know you're coaching, baseball, right? Brooks's team, and,
Yep.
and I'll ask you, as a coach, Jay, when you're at practice, how many times at practice, or how many days a week when you're practicing, are you practicing them catching ground balls?
Every practice.
Okay. How many times are you having them practice on hitting the ball, or batting?
It's a fundamental piece of baseball, so every practice.
Okay. Throwing and catching.
Yeah, pretty much every practice.
Okay. So that's the same kind of thing here. Not that you're going to do a deadlift every single workout, right? But those are the fundamental things of baseball. you can't just make up parts of baseball, right? You can't just be like, oh, we're tackling everybody today. There's no tackling in baseball, right?
Just for the
It's
sake of
not, hey, we're
making a
going to kick
difference.
field. Yeah, we're not kicking field goals, right? So it's one of those things where you have to practice the things that are fundamental to that dynamic, to that thing. So I think it's, it is important, and we do need to practice those things over and over, which also goes back to the said principle of, if you repeatedly do something well, you will get better at it, right?
Yeah.
So we need to get better at pushing, pulling, pressing, knee hinge, hip hinge, because those are the major movements that we use in our life and in the gym. So if I'm just always doing something randomly different, I'm never actually going to get better, because my body never had the chance to adapt.
Mm.
So it's that doing the same things over and over, but having some variation to it, is what gets you the best results, because it allows you to practice and get better, but it
Yep.
never allows you to stagnate and stay the same.
Yep.
So hopefully
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think that's awesome. If you look at my workouts, you'd be bored to death, right? If you if you look at really, if you look at people who are really, really fit, you would be bored to death.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, they're doing the same pretty much every week. They're doing a variation of a bench press. They're doing a variation of a squat. These are movement patterns, right? You have a push, which is bench press. You have a pull, which would be like a row or a pull up. You have a squat, which is a knee. You have a deadlift, which is a hip hinge. And then there's a couple different, I might be doing a deadlift with a barbell, or I might be doing deadlift with a dumbbell, or I might be doing a deadlift with holding cables, or like all these different things. Maybe it's a single leg deadlift, maybe it's a single, whatever. So there's certainly variations to every movement pattern, but you're right. There's only so many variations that make sense until you just start randomly making up shit that's just kind of entertaining and not really valuable. I mean, and again, we try to cater to that too. Like, I also understand that there is a place for that, right? Like,
Sure.
if I'm just bored to death and I'm doing the same, what I feel like are the same movements, even within a couple week period, right? Like, if I come in and I do a squat this day and I don't understand the value of progressive overload and how all that works, and the next week I do a barbell squat. To the person who's new in fitness or don't understand all this stuff, we might be like, oh, I just did a squat last week. And, we kind of giggle about it because we're like, yeah, and you're going to do one literally when you leave here and go sit on the toilet, you're going to do another one. And then
Yep.
when you bend over to pick up the laundry basket, you're going to do another one. And then when
Yep.
you go to get, and so like we recognize this stuff, and like the whole reason we're doing the squat so that you can get on the toilet a little easier and off.
Yep.
You can pick up the laundry basket. You can do these things. And the only way you can nail that down is if you condense the time between you doing that movement,
Yep.
right? If it's a month apart, how good do we get at something by doing it here and then doing it again in a month? It's too much time for us to forget the skill, right? So we want to condense it.
Sure.
So awesome. Great explanation of that. I love that. Last piece I want to talk about, and this is honestly my favorite part, and it's the psychology of coaching. And it's everything around accountability. It's around mindset. It's around what are our jobs as coaches and what are our jobs not, because I think the lines have been blurred with a lot of people on what a fitness coach should do. So in your opinion, as a trainer, coach with a lot of experience, um, what are you responsible for, and what am I responsible for as the client? How should that relationship look?
Sure. It's a great question. I think, like you said, very important. Um, I think my job is to basically provide you with what I'm able to, right? Depending upon the type of program you might be enrolled in, right? Whether you're in mentorship or just coaching,
Yep.
or what have you. There's people that, not here, but that do, training or coaching, maybe long distance. There's all
Yep.
sorts of different programs. But I think for what we have here, is my job is to take and kind of learn as much as I can about you as quickly as possible, and then provide you with the information and the tools to do what you need to achieve your goals, while at the same time trying to give you some context, and understanding of how to do them, and then to provide you with, positive reinforcement, but also some consistent accountability. So, you know, creating workout programs that are good for you, right? We allot a certain amount of days a week that you can come in and train, right? We have a 24/7 access facility. And I'll plug this in. I want to say this before. We have Saturday morning, 8:30 a.m. every Saturday, large group, right? Which is the boot camp style class, like the
That's
kind
right.
of like the old facility. So anybody doing training has access to that included in your membership. So, again, if you want some more variety, there's another opportunity for you.
Yep.
So I had to get that one in there.
Yeah. Plug that in.
But so just providing with that opportunity of here's your goal, here's how we're going to get there. And then anytime maybe you have questions or don't understand, try to further educate. I try to tell people, like, I love questions, I love feedback. I love, maybe not being like, like, hey, jerk, why are you making me do this? But like, hey, like, can you explain to me? I don't understand this, or
Yeah.
why am I doing that? I love explaining that. Like, I almost wish everybody would ask that. I'd rather somebody ask me that, and we can have an open, discussion and dialogue about it, and come to a better understanding, and we're in a better place. Than people just be like secretly like, oh, I don't really like this, and do that for a couple months, and then all of a sudden they want to quit, and then they don't ever achieve their goal.
Right.
But in terms of with providing you that framework of, hey, here's how we're going to help get you there. It is my job to try to be as much of an emotional support as I can, and to be a positive influence, bringing energy and passion. And again, anytime we're working, just keep pushing forward, because life is hard and life is difficult and it's a challenge. So just kind of to be there, to be that rock or that support for you, but also understanding that if you want to get results, if you want change to happen, you have to do things that are a little bit hard. You have to do things that you don't really want to do. You have to do things that are maybe a little uncomfortable. You have to do things that involve sacrifice.
Oh,
Otherwise, you're just going to stay where you're at, right? It's the I don't know if you call it a proverb, a parable, whatever it is, but is the definition of insanity, right? Is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
yep.
So just coming to the gym and making an investment in your time and money, while that is an important step and necessary, doesn't mean that you're going to get results.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on a second. So what you're saying is you're not responsible for getting me results. If I hire you, if I come to the gym and I pay my couple $100 or whatever I'm paying for my training program, right?
Yeah.
It's on you to get me results,
Well,
right?
it's again like another saying. I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make it drink.
So
So,
you gotta do the work, is what you're saying.
100%. Well, and because it's and when you get results, people will thank me. It has nothing to do with them. I didn't get the results. I didn't wake up at 4 a.m. and come into the
Right.
gym when
You're the
I mean, yes,
guide.
I did because I was there. But in your life, right? Like, you're the one who got up and came to the gym. You're the one who sweat. You're the one who pushed. You're the one who made the sacrifice with something with their nutrition or their diet plan. You're the one who reached out for help and worked on, maybe positive mental thinking. You're
Mm,
the one who did it all. So when you get the results, it is 100% because of you. It's not because of me. Now, I provided you with some resources, I'm not trying to take away from, I do think there is value to what I do. That's why I do it.
yeah,
But at the
100%.
end of the day, I can tell you, show you, give you all the information, send you text messages, emails, print out pamphlets for you, create the greatest workout. I could do everything under the sun, but I can't do that squat for you. I
Mm,
can't meal prep for you. I can't make you go to bed early on a Saturday night and not have those couple extra drinks, and get up on Sunday morning and, whatever you do, family time, church, whatever it is, and make you go get your cardio in. I, I can't do that.
yeah.
Now, if I could, if that was an ability, then every one of my clients would 100% have the best results ever.
Right?
But I
Yeah.
can't. So, again, I'm just, that's what you're making the investment for, is for me to provide you with that opportunity. It's for me to lead you to the water so that you can drink.
Yeah. So everybody says, like, I want to hire a coach so they can hold me accountable until it's time to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Right. I've done this for a long time. You've done this for a long time. And I made a lot of mistakes. And I've worked with a lot of clients who had the expectation that because they were giving me money, that I was supposed to solve all their problems and that they wouldn't have to put in the work. Like, and then I was supposed to chase them around and beg them. And when you're a passionate coach, and this is tough. So when you're a passionate coach, you a lot of times will want it for your client more than they want it for themselves. They
100%.
like the
Every time.
idea. Yeah, they
Yeah.
like the idea of
Yeah.
reaching that goal. So when they come in and do their consult, they're like, you know what? Enough is enough. It's January 1st. Well, usually they don't come in until about the third week of January, but
Yeah.
it's January 27th, and these New Year's resolutions have to happen. And I've had enough, and and I'm not making fun by any means. I'm making light of this because it
Sure.
happens and whatever. But I really am ready to take my life back, and nothing gets me more excited than that. I'm like, let's do it. Like, I have the tools, I have the frameworks, I can tell you exactly what to do. I can guide you straight to that, down the path to that result. Let's go, right? And they get all excited, and we lock arms, and then all of a sudden, it's like after a couple weeks, they stop showing up, or they're late, or I see their level of intensity towards their commitment start to kind of wane a little bit, and I'm like, what's going on here? Well, this is, I don't know. Like, I didn't come in yesterday. You didn't text me. Like, well, what do you mean I didn't text you? You were on the schedule. You knew you're supposed to be here for your workout.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is if you're not careful, people will start to blame you as the coach.
Yeah.
Well, you just weren't as, you didn't follow up with me as much as you should have. And, I missed the session, and you didn't hold me accountable. And it's like, no, 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 no. A coach's job is not to be a babysitter. A coach's job is not to be a doormat. A coach's job is not to take the responsibility if the client doesn't do the work. I mean, I work right now as we speak with several high level coaches, and they wouldn't accept that from me. They
Yeah.
wouldn't allow me to go, hey, listen, you paid me all this money. Now I'm just going to let you do and, whatever you feel like doing. No, they're going to step in and go, hey, Jay, this is how you're showing up. I love you, but like, you got to change or you're not going to get where you want to go. I can't permit you to, accept the fact that if you behave this way, you're going to get to your result, because you're not. And this is the hard thing about coaching, because it is like a really, we're compassionate. We're some of the most compassionate people as coaches and trainers. Like, we really want to see people win. And we have a tendency sometimes to not tell people the truth. I know I've done this in the past. Like, and these are the clients that were not successful, is the ones where I'm like, I really don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
I really don't want to tell them how, they're showing up, because they might get offended. They're offendable, very offendable people. Or I don't really want to tell them that if they actually want to lose this 70 pounds, they're going to probably need to be in here like 5 days a week, and they're probably going to have to walk on their days that they're not in the gym, and they're going to have to totally change their diet, and they're going to have to quit drinking so much alcohol, and they're going to have to start sleeping better, and they're going to have to start drinking water instead of soda, and they're going to have to start managing their stress and all these things. But the reality, that's what it takes,
Yep.
right? And so when you start telling people this stuff, it's like, hey, are you sure, like, you're ready to commit to this? Or when they start getting into it and they realize it's way harder than it seemed in their mind, like, you've seen the memes on Facebook where it's like, this is what I think I look like when I'm working out. This is what I actually, whatever. It's like
Yeah.
that. It's like, this is what I think about the path. It's going to be all sunshine and rainbows, and it's going to be super easy, and I'm just going to eat chicken and broccoli every day and love it and lose all this weight and work out all the time and feel good, and everything's going to be amazing. But it's really like the alarm clock goes off, and you're like, all I want to do is sleep a little bit longer. Well, maybe I can just go to the gym another day. Well, since I didn't go to the gym, I can kind of eat whatever I want to eat. And then you go off on this whole tangent of the same lifestyle stuff that you were doing before. And then you got to either, one, take personal responsibility for that, or two, blame your coach. That's your two options. So I'm sharing this because it's been one of the bigger frustrations on my part, because, man, I love to be held accountable. And if you drive by every gym in America, most of them say fitness, nutrition, and accountability. But I have a problem with the accountability piece and how that's actually delivered. Speak to me a little bit about what it means to you to be held accountable.
Sure. So one thing I wanted to say real quick, and this may tie into it, but is I do think, and I think this is, thanks to you and kind of your vision and what you're doing, and also the team that we have with the coaches, is that I think, and we're working on the accountability piece and constantly improving that, but that we do have, I think, some really great um programs, not just in the gym, but also outside of the gym,
Yeah.
that we can help people to get there. And
Yeah.
that's another thing we talk about compassion and empathy, is that we're not going to tell people that they need to be there day one, right? If it's been
Right.
20 years, like, we got to start, we got to meet you kind of where you're at. And again, like progressive overload with the training, with our lifestyle habits, we're going to set easy attainable targets, right? And we're just going to progressively overload
Yep.
that just a little bit. I know you said a couple of your clients in the Conquer Me program have been like, well, when are we going to change my diet? And you're like,
Right.
we did. Like, you lost all this weight. And they're like, oh, they didn't even realize it. So, we have, I think, some really great support with not only other coaches, but also Andrea and Paige and the work that they do with our mentorship program
Yep.
and goal reviews and kind of um, that outside piece is like, again, we're giving you everything that we can possibly give to help you get there. So
Yep.
the supports are there for that too. And I think that's important, is that we want to help build you up to that point so that you can get there. So, we also don't expect people to get there in one day, but you do need to get there, right? We do need to constantly be moving forward, constantly progressing. And that might be something super, super small, some little minute detail, that one extra day of 24/7, that one extra day of preparing your food, that one extra day of getting an extra hour of sleep. But it's just, we want to constantly help, progress you to get there. So not just in the gym, but I also want to, shout out, our outside of the gym, support that we have, that is there too.
Yep.
As far as support. And then, I think the accountability piece, I personally love being held accountable. um, I do way better when I'm being held accountable, you
Yeah.
know,
I think everybody does.
and I think it's just, when somebody tells me like, hey, like, and I don't know if it's from being up north or being from the Northeast, but like, I just respond more to like, hey, do this.
Yeah.
It'll help you for this. And then it's just, oh, okay. Like, through all my years of training, like, I would see somebody do something or somebody would teach it to me, and I would see that it worked. And I'm like, I'm never going to stop doing
Yep.
that. Not that it's easy or not that you do it 100% of the time, but I just think being accountable is just like, hey, when you go to somebody and say, I need help me with this. Right. And then you go to somebody that, has knowledge or wisdom or experience or expertise. And then they say, okay, here, do this. Like, you should do it.
Right.
Right now, it's not always going to be 100%. So go back to them with feedback. Hey, blah, 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 XYZ, this happened. And then if they're a good coach, they will then provide you with, okay, here's a different alternative. Okay, we're going to try this then. Right. And so that's another thing, is that it doesn't have to be 100% written in stone, my way or the highway, but it needs to be an open dialogue, and you need to be open to being coached or being held accountable. Hey, I tried this. These three things happened, and that really didn't work for me. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to have you try this thing instead. And it's just that, again, constantly progressing and finding ways that work for you. Because again, we have lots of different clients and different environments and backgrounds. So what I give, if I'm coaching you, Jay, isn't going to necessarily work for a 68-year-old grandma,
Yep.
right? It's going to be different. Um, Fundamentals are the same. The concepts are the same. The science, the evidence-based practice is the same.
Yep.
But, we're going to make adaptations and modifications, but you as a client have to be open to that coaching or accountability to at least try it and
Yep.
then provide feedback so that we can help make adjustments.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. So from the coach's side, we've got to be willing to tell the truth. We've got to be willing to set the proper expectations. Hey, like, you've got really big goals. These are really big, lofty goals, and I love it. But also, I want you to understand that there's going to be sacrifice. There's going to be things that you have to go through that you're not going to feel like doing, as you shared before. It's going to be inconvenient. It's going to cost money. It's going to cost time. It's going to cost time away from your family. You might have to miss a birthday party here and there. Like, we've got to be willing to tell people that. If they have a big goal, because people don't really know. They're following all these Instagram models. They're looking at people taking all these medications, and they're seeing all these super fast results, and they think that that's like real. Like, well, that's going to happen for me. Surely if I go hire a trainer, I'm just going to, lose 60 pounds in 60 minutes and it's going to be amazing. And it's like, no, like, we got to set the frame for that. Like, this is how it's going to look. And then for the client, if they really still want to do that and they say, yeah, I want to commit to that process, we support them through that. But then the client has to be also okay with sometimes being called to the table and saying, hey, like, RJ, listen, man, you told me you wanted to lose this 60 pounds, and you told me how important this was, and you wanted to get off this, all these medications, and you don't want to have type 2 diabetes anymore, and you're tired of feeling this way and all these things. And we set these targets and we set a path, but you're not doing the work. So what needs to change? Where are we? And where do we want to go? Do we still want to go here? because we're either going to have to change our level of commitment and we're going to have to start doing the work that we discussed to get you there. We know it's proven, or we're going to have to change your goal. And either is okay. There's nothing
Sure.
wrong with that. Like, I mean, we have clients, man, like tons that they don't have any specific goal necessarily other than to be able to come in and continue moving.
Sure. And
To
that's awesome.
me, that's a worthy goal. Right.
Absolutely.
So like they can come in a couple days, 2, 3, 4 days a week and do some moderate exercise, and that's going to serve their goal. But we have a lot of people who come in and they're at their wits end, man. Like they've tried everything. They're crying in the consult. Like, I don't want to be this way anymore. I've got to make some changes. My mom died of a heart attack at 62. I'm 61 and I'm 50 pounds overweight. And I know that if I don't, to me, I'm like, I got to help this person. Like, we got to get a
Yep.
plan in place and we got to make this work. But then
Sure.
when you're not willing to do the work, it can be very tempting for us to just go, well, you're not really technically doing the work, but we're just going to sweep that under the rug and we're going to just tell you how amazing you're doing. And hey, this is all going to work out. It's just going to all work itself out. Well, that's a lie
Mhm.
because it's not going to all work itself out.
Mhm.
So that's the hard part. And for me, I'm trying to instill a culture in our facility with me and our coaches and like even how I work with you guys and how I want you to work with me. It's like, I mean, our core value number one is personal responsibility. To me, that's accountability. If I'm not showing up the way that I know that you guys know that I should be showing up or can show up, I'm trusting you to love me enough to sit me down and be like, Jay, I know this isn't your heart. I know this probably isn't what you mean to do, but this is how you're showing up. Just like I want to do the same thing with you. Just
Sure.
like if our clients are not doing what they need to do, it is our job to some degree to help them get to their goals. Clearly, we can't do the work for them,
Yep.
but it's our job to set the proper expectations and frames for what is required of them to do. And then it's to ask questions. Hey, you told me that you want it to be here, but you're not doing the work. So how can I support you? Like, do you really want to be held accountable, or do you just like the idea of being held accountable? Right. And so for us, I really want to instill that. And part of that is like we've leaned into how in the world could we do that? We can't follow the client home. We can't do the work for them. We can't make them do it. They obviously have to have the fire in their belly. Like that's the foundation is you've got to have a want and desire to do this on your own, not because
Yep.
just because you hired a trainer. But assume we have that. What other pieces can we put into place that will help them to be more accountable? And one is we put people on recurring schedules, right? We know that you need to be here 3 days a week. We agree on that. So let's take all of the margin of error out and let's not leave you room to just go, I'll go another day. Like, let's put these sessions on a calendar. Let's put them on recurring. So you know that every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5:30, you're going to be at the gym. Like, that helps with accountability. If that was me, I would want to be put on recurring so that now I don't get to negotiate with myself. I've
Yep.
already agreed. I'm going to be there. We do have, we've had feedback in the past where people are like, I just don't really like the scheduling. It holds me, it's restrictive, right? It's kind of some of the language it's restrictive. And although,
Some might call that accountable.
yeah, it might be accountable. So although I get it,
Sure.
it's hard to say I want to be held accountable, but then on the other side say, but I don't want to have to commit. Right? And that's what's happening. It's like, hey, I really want to be held accountable to losing this weight, but I don't really want to have to like completely commit to showing up for my workouts. Let me just come in if I feel like I can make it or whatever the
Yeah.
case is. There's a lot of things like that, but I think, for us, at least for what I'm trying to build with you guys, it's like I want our clients to have the best chance to win. And I know that the psychology behind all this is like it's really hard. Transformation is hard. That's why the majority of our population is walking around in the condition that they're in.
Absolutely.
So how can we set our clients up for success? I think it's we have a very well-rounded resistance training, programming that delivers what people need safely. I think it's having coaches who are mature and experienced enough to have tough conversations and willing to say, hey, like, what do we need to adjust? Your commitment level or your goal, and like be okay with those conversations. And I really think we have that, right? Like I'm super proud of what we're doing with Strong Body. I'm super proud of our client base. I don't think anybody has better clients than we have. So super fortunate, man, for that. But yeah, I wanted to hit on this because like we have all these conversations in our team meetings, right? It's always me, you, and the rest of the team. And we're talking about how can we help our clients more and how can we get better and how can we evolve to be a more well-rounded program and more attractive to other people and all these things. And there's so much gold in those conversations that I'm like, I wish clients just understood the reasoning behind why we do what we do.
Yep.
A lot of times they just see the surface and it doesn't make sense to them because they haven't thought through the process of the last 10 years of trying to figure this stuff out. So I thought it would be helpful just to jump on and talk about the direction that we're going with programming, talk about what it means to be a coach, talk about what it means to have accountability in our lives. And I thought you'd be a good person to speak to that. So this has been awesome, man. I appreciate it. Is there any last thoughts that you want to add?
I just want to say I appreciate having me on. And I think it's kind of funny because, as I said to you the other day, I was like, "Hey, when can I be on your podcast?" I was like, "I feel like I got stuff I want to say and communicate." So,
It
I'm
was
glad
already
that
on the list.
kind of worked out. So,
Yeah.
no, I appreciate being on here. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to work here. I appreciate all the clients. I appreciate all the teammates. Like I tell people all the time, when people find out I live in Chapin, like, why do you work here? And I'm like, because I love it,
Mm.
right? You know what I mean? I love being here, and that this is where I want to work. And hopefully I'll find somewhere closer to live. But
Right.
in the meantime, I just I really enjoy it, and it's a pleasure. And again, I think this is important, and hopefully people realize that this was us kind of speaking from the heart of like, hey, like we're trying to help you, give it to you straight, tell you what we can do. And the other thing is like for people they can do it, right? I try to tell the clients like you can do it,
Yeah.
you can do it, and we're here to help you, and we'll do whatever we can. Um, and kind of I think the most important thing is, and I've been working on this with a few people, is just show up.
Yeah.
Just like most of life is just showing up. So like just show up, especially for sessions, just show up, and once you walk in the door, it's all gravy from there. Like it's
Mm.
gonna go good. You're gonna get a great workout. I think most of you would agree. You feel better when you leave than when you came in. Obviously, the 20 reps I know is getting some people, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Though we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll adapt to that, so that'll be good. But yeah, I think it's just we love you guys. We're so happy to be able to do this, and again, I love being able to like reach out to people and hopefully make it a difference or
Yep.
change or a positive impact in their life. And again, I think the biggest thing is like when you're having those tough days, or if you're in that tough moment right now, like just show up, walk in
Yeah.
the door. Usually from there, the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Well, dude, there's something about proximity, and I'm glad you said that. It's a great way to wrap this up. Is if you can just put yourself in proximity to an environment that's conducive for growth, like personal development, right? If I'm down in the dumps and I don't feel good and I'm going through depression or I've got whatever situation, but I just literally put myself into an environment where other people are happy and upbeat and they're growing and they're changing and they're grateful and like all these types of things, I'm going to take on that energy, right? Like eventually I'm going to go, you know what? Like life isn't so bad. Like, look, everybody, it's as good. Things are good. It's the same thing with the gym. Like a lot of people that come into us, they're in an environment that is not conducive for change and they've been in the same spot and same rut and maybe negativity or whatever the thing is, right? If you can just walk into the gym, you're going to be surrounded by people who want you to be successful and who are going to be encouraging to you and who are going to embrace you and hold you accountable and have conversations with you. And like just that alone sometimes is enough to make all the difference. It's like, okay, now I'm here. This is a whole different environment. I can behave differently here.
Yep.
Like I all of a sudden am motivated to work out just because I'm in an environment with other people who value their health and fitness. Where if I'm at home, maybe I don't have that, right?
Yep.
So yeah, man, like there's it's very undervalued of just get in the room, just show up to the room, don't set any crazy expectations on yourself, like show up, be open-minded, have a good attitude, and amazing things will happen. So
That's right.
cool, brother. All right, man, appreciate you. I'll catch you later. This podcast will be posted soon. I'll make sure you get the episode and appreciate you being on.
Thanks. Have a great day,
All right,
everybody.
see you, RJ.
Bye, Jay.